Friday, November 27, 2015. Gen S1E0 The Great Conspiracy. Green-Eyed Nothing. Series 1. Episode 0. The Great Conspiracy. By Alexander Gordon Jahans. When people talk about the world ending, they imagine huge epic destruction and weighty arguments. Conversations to decide the fate of humanity. That's not how it happened. On the 11th of September 2001, some planes flew into some towers in America, and just like that the countdown to Armageddon started running. People are still arguing whether it was lone nutter terrorists or terrorists trained by the CIA or thermite charges and a falso flag operation. I don't know, I was 4 at the time, but if you ask me, it really does not matter whether all those people were killed by their government or somebody else. What matters is that the President of America and the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland decided that this was the perfect excuse to kick in some countries and take their oil. Didn't that just work out swimmingly? The war on terror lasted 20 years and it ended because of me, but let's back up a bit first. In 2015, America was just about giving up on democracy and ready to elect a man who made the Nazis look preferable, because at least they fucking knew what they were doing, and Britain was finally, maybe, ready to admit that they were just a tad too compassionate to keep electing selfish greedy fuckwits who would let the poor suffer and die. While the selfish greedy fuckwits in power were thus pulling all the tricks they thought they could get away with a slim majority and the issue of the European Union hanging over their hands, to remain in power. And I did not care, because I was graduating university and I was in love. Now I know what you're wondering: Oxford or Cambridge? Did I study in agriculture and animal husbandry or great dictatorships through the ages? Did I fuck a pig or did I fuck a kid? Was my hero Stalin or Hitler? Did I prefer Prosecco or champagne? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I was a woking boy. In the meaning of Live by Douglas Adams, our town means that feeling where you go into the kitchen and forget what you went in there for, which is appropriate. I studied English literature and creative writing. I fucked nothing and nobody except my crush at university. My hero was Professor Logie City, or if pushed for a real-life example, Bill Gates, because computers, man, fucking computers. My favorite drink was Diet Coke, and if pushed for an alcoholic option, Krabby's alcoholic ginger beer. I was not born evil. I was not a right-winger, I was not a loony lefty. I bought the Beano and played Pokemon on the GameCube just like everybody else. I was just a nerd who really loved Professor Logie City and wanted to dress like him and in my dreams be him, you know. To right wrongs and fight evil. I thought I was one of the good guys, but yes, I did get sorted into Slytherin on Pottermore and was a little too into the sharkploitation films, which should have been signs, but sharks are cool and women in bikinis are hot. What self-respecting young man is going to say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be liking women getting eaten alive by sharks this much? I mean, come on, it's not like Sharknado is directed by Christopher Nolan, you know? It's pulpy and fun, so what if it's a little vory? And anyway, what's wrong with vor as a fetish? Plenty of people have it and don't go on to create, well, what I created. So I woke the morning after and I had eaten her alive. I was literally straddling a skeleton with just the hands and feet and head remaining. There were teeth and claw marks all over her skeleton, and my mouth and chin and hands were just covered in blood and gristle. It didn't take much to put it together. Then I pulled out my phone to call the police, because holy fuck, I had to hand myself in. I had an answer phone message. She must have bump dialed me or something as we were having sex, because that's what I heard. Us grinding away and both screaming encouragement to each other, and then this happened, I swear to God, or Professor Logie City. I asked, do you mind if I have a bite? No, she said, go ahead, I like it kinky. Thank you, I said. Yes. Yeah. Wait. No. Stop. She said, oh God. Your eyes. They're green. They're glowing green. And then she screamed until the answer phone stopped recording. I ate her alive. I ate her the fuck alive, and something had possessed me. Now, things were different. I mean, a dude going nuts and killing someone, that's just like what Chip paper. People die all the time. They die because of drugs, because the government stopped their benefits, because they can't afford food, because the unvaccinated kids led them to catch a previously dead illness, because the government dropped a missile on them or Israel blew them up. If all that happened was that I killed someone, then justice was the priority, but if I had been possessed or something, then it wouldn't be just me. The world doesn't work like that. If this was an outside context incident, then this was bigger than me and her, this was bigger than any single life. I had a duty to stay alive and learn as much about my condition as I could so I could help the authorities stop the tide of shit when it came. So I hid the body, dumped it across multiple different countries. Not hard when you have a campervan capable of crossing the channel. I had built it because I loved Top Gear and was in love with the idea of just taking off and going on an adventure. Then I ran and hid. I burned everything, again across multiple countries. I changed my name and abandoned my online accounts. I faded into the mist and started new under the anonymous identity of the Farshnook. It was just a stupid username, you know, and one that had no obvious etymology to a Western atheist with a Christian upbringing. I started trying to figure myself out. Keeping a dream diary. Paying attention to my subconscious. Doing blind taste tests to see what appealed to me more. I started researching what went into food production to see if anything resonated with me. I wrote it all up as science fiction. I wanted people to have information there, just in case. So much of human evolution, development, and invention happens because one idea inspires another. Even today, in the age when search engines are king, just knowing what to search for can make things so much easier. I mean, just try telling a frustrated person with a fetish the relevant search term if they don't know it, and watch their faces light up as they realize they now have the magic words to get into Diagon Alley. That's all I was trying to do, seed the web with magic words on the off chance that it might help. I still don't know if I did the right thing. On the 2nd of May 2011, Osama bin Laden was killed by American forces in Pakistan, but the war on terror continued because unlike conventional war, this isn't empire against empire, this is pest control. Now any ragtag bunch of misfits can get hold of some guns, claim they're on a mission from God, and start pretending they're at war with the most powerful countries in the world. No, you're not Ahmed. You're just a dickhead with a gun deciding to pick a fight with a titanium-plated Leviathan. So after Al-Qaeda, up stepped ISIS. Then in August of 2020, a certain wig-wearing madman of a president decided, you know, that war in Syria, where we're on the opposite side of Russia and there's a massive humanitarian crisis, I'm going to end it with a nuclear bomb. Now fortunately the American people promptly decided to have a revolution and get him the fuck out of office, because fuck that madness, and the nuke was never actually launched because nothing is worth that much blood. But ISIS and the rest of the world was aware of just how big a bullet had been dodged, so peace was hurriedly hashed out, because so what if ISIS chops people's heads off and stones others? So does Saudi Arabia, and they head the UN Human Rights Council. So who would pick up the villain ball and continue the war on terror? Hezbollah, Hamas, the Gamersgate movement, the KKK, the Salvation Army, feminism. I shit you not. Feminism. Still with the old white guys, still with the bigotry and racism and sexism. Still with the thousands of white man sci-fi superheroes, but two totally different female superheroes by two totally different companies on two totally different entertainment platforms, and Ermagerd. There can only be one. I understand. I do. I mean, we had narrowly averted nuclear war at the hands of man yet again. Didn't woman deserve a chance to fuck it up for once? How many times had men murdered and committed genocide, but we get one Margaret Thatcher and never again? How many times have the men had failed and bloody revolutions? Wasn't it about time the women got a chance to be evil? The poor fools. How could they know? How could they ever have possibly known that they were the assassination of Franz Ferdinand to the World War I was about to deliver? The poor insane fools. On the 11th of September 2023, radical feminists tried to storm Parliament and assassinate the Prime Minister. They didn't succeed, but they weren't meant to, not that they knew that. They didn't know that their bold attempt at a glorious revolution was being orchestrated for my benefit. You see, instead of arsenic pills or cyanide capsules, they had SYLPH pills. They didn't die when they took the pills, they burned up and shrank. I had seen the technology in my dreams. I had watched the albino SYLPH squirrel be created to save that majestic and doomed race. I had remembered or dreamt getting a squirrel and using it turn my human friends and lovers into my immortal pets. I had used it to turn them into my cattle, I had eaten them alive and they had laughed, finding the experience remarkably pleasurable. This was why I had eaten her. In a previous life, because of the SYLPH squirrel and the SYLPH pill, I thought eating the ones you love entirely normal. Then once I bad started, I couldn't stop. The experience was just too glorious. If you want to know how I became the Butcher of Britain, then the answer is 6 years on the run, learning that I had this great darkness inside me. A darkness that had lost me my friends and family and the woman I loved. How could I be the same person, knowing what I was capable of? But I knew that if this were true, if I were not just crazy, then I needed to plan and prepare and get ready to fight, because if my memories were true, then so were other things that were far worse than me. So I learned to shoot, learned to fight, learned to do basic first aid and battlefield triage, learned to hunt and kill and butcher. Not people, you understand, just game animals. I needed the protein to keep it, the hunger, at bay. When they found me, I was halfway to being that man. Seeing the video feed of the attack, seeing the shrunken women themselves, that near enough completed the change. You must understand that they were desperate. They weren't evil. They just didn't know what they were dealing with and they were afraid. I seemed to know, so they found me. They said they would give me a full pardon if I helped them. They knew I'd eaten my lover alive, they knew I'd been writing some very strange stuff, and they considered me the closest thing to an expert on this subject. They asked for help and advice. So I told them. Oh God in heaven, I told them. Do you know what a SYLPH is? A SYLPH is an artificial biological protection system. If you want to go the first way, all domination and invasion, then you look at an exosuit or a war shark, an adaptation to survival that makes you hard and tough and dangerous. A SYLPH survives because it is useful and exploitable. That is literally what SYLPHs are designed to be, survival through exploitability. SYLPHs are the best soldiers, the best lovers, the best cattle, the best pets and the best servants. They feel amazing when they are being properly exploited in a manner that will speed along their survival and genetic prosperity, and they make those have them almost addicted to their presence, addicted to knowing and having and making more of them. And now the feminists had them. Idiot boys from 2 to 202 like to talk about how women have it so easy because we fetishize them, and thus they can just walk into jobs and live for free because men will do things for them because they're pretty. Except there's an entire industry basically saying that the majority of women who can't conform to this rigid man-defined standard of beauty are worthless, and hey, women age. SYLPHs don't age. They remain young and beautiful for 250 years and even turn whoever takes them into this, and in theory you can keep taking the pills to be practically immortal. A world of ever young, beautiful, apparently submissive, women getting ever smarter and more experienced as us men slowly die off. And oh, by the way, did I mention SYLPHs can asexually reproduce, so they don't need men? Yeah, that's not a pleasant prospect. This had to be stopped. Except you can't fight terrorism with guns and bombs, you have to fight it with peace and diplomacy. So how do you counter the threat of a terrorist organization who can destroy humanity by appealing to the lust and greed and stupidity of man? You lean into the wind and use the SYLPH pill to do exactly that, but in a manner that makes sure the SYLPH is not a goddess with infinite power and potential, but a seal swimming with sharks. The beautiful simplicity of the plan lied in its legality and continuity with the present. Human rights extend only to humans, and SYLPHs aren't humans, so therefore whatever you want to do with them is totally okay legally. The difficulty wasn't the paperwork, it was the societal change. You see, to get a plan like this passed by Congress and Parliament, we had to appeal to some real sick fucks. This was when I stated suggesting we spread word about SYLPH pill's capacity to cure disabilities. I wasn't lying. A SYLPH pill, the right kind of SYLPH pill, really can act as a miracle cure and regrow limbs and reverse the development and spread of cancerous growths. Except now they're no longer human, and would you believe we have several fast food joints looking for cheap sources of meat? I have a lot of blood on my hands, but to be fair, the question of eugenics was already getting an airing in scientific circles, what with IVF and designer babies. Then we started touting it as a cure for obesity and depression. We were now beginning to think seriously about what kind of world we would create for our grandchildren, and we have some real kinky fucks up in Parliament who mentioned the idea of having people as pets, so I discussed the idea that maybe that could solve homelessness at least, and to be fair it did, but not because people decided to adopt the homeless as pets. In America the right-wingers loved it. I mean, they've got guns everywhere and they started taking a real rules lawyer approach. Like, you see someone who pisses you off, offer them a stick of gum that's been laced with SYLPH stuff, or just stick a needle in their arse, and when they're technically no longer human you gun them down and have a DNA test prove you did nothing wrong, because hey, they're not human, right? The EU took a while to warm up to it, but when we started adopting the collar system to stop SYLPHs under the protection of a human being gunned down or otherwise led away to be exploited, they decided to take it up as a sign of egalitarianism, celebrating this new form of relationship between people. Meanwhile, their companies and governments used it as a chance to exploit the poor and do some ethnic cleansing. Russia and China decided to embrace the SYLPH pill, but let them have some basic rights, such as to not be raped or killed or eaten, or even the ever wonderful, not be turned into a stone statue. Thus their economies and militaries experienced massive growth. I mean, SYLPHs are a little submissive and keen to be exploited anyway, and even if they had a problem with them, it was pretty impossible for them to not flee to a place that at least gave them the rights of animals. The Islamist nations were resistant at first because religion generally isn't keen on the whole rape, murder, and cannibalism deal, but over time the shock faded and they had to deal with immigrants. Tons of beautiful submissive women turning up on their borders, willing to do anything to be allowed basic rights. The SYLPHs worked their way into their societies, and that's when the old in power got scared, especially when Britain and America said, hey guys, if you don't do what we've done, they'll remove you from power and undo your idea of society with subtlety and guile. So they took up the Farsh-Nuke plan as well. Israel got peace at last by simply dousing every Palestinian settlement with a thick fog of aerosolized SYLPH pill solution that was taken in by contact with the skin. To their credit, Israel didn't actually commit genocide. Instead they left it a month, then walked into the Palestinian settlements to find the occupants greeting them like dogs who miss their masters. As I understand it, Israel remains proud of its Palestinian SYLPHs, and they've even created a little bit of Palestine in the center of Israel so that the SYLPHs they fell in love with might have their culture continue. Japan was as usual 20 years ahead of Britain and America when it came to the SYLPH pill, as they have always given SYLPHs human rights and expected men to be sold alongside women at pet shops. Nobody fucking knew a damn thing about how North Korea reacted to the SYLPH pill, but it seemed their great leader wanted refugees to flock to his country, but I doubt many ever did. So what about me? My name was cleared and I became William Dixon Wright once more. In January I would live as a pet SYLPH at a local zoo as a kind of spiritual cleansing and to help encourage a new generation of girls to believe in the great conspiracy that being a SYLPH is perfectly normal and safe. In February I would binge. No thought, no class, no style, just getting shit-faced and tearing women's throats out in a great orgy of hunger and lust. In March I would be the businessman once more. 5 women every week, their skeletons, hair, stomach acid, brains, and fecal matter sold to various different parties, their blood, feet, hands, internal organs and faces turned into sausages and burgers. The rest would be turned into different meat cuts and eaten throughout the week, with the excess part sold and part frozen for Christ Mass. I would always recruit one romantic partner, one pet, and one chef each year. This isn't to say that I wouldn't have other partners and other pets, but that I would always have one special one for that year, so that come Christ Mass everything I had collected could be disposed of at once. My chef would become the roast for Christ Mass Day. My romantic partner would be sent into an artificial coma and placed safely away in a bunker beneath my house, and my pet would be stuffed. In June and July I would open my house up to schools, colleges and universities to educate the next generation about the life of a SYLPH and the life of one whose living exploits SYLPHs. It would not be unusual for the college and university graduates to take a shine to me and find me later. Indeed, should I find these women on my dinner plate, I would usually make sure to have copies made of their heads on special mounts and send these to their families and educational establishments, with one to put on my wall to remember them by. Once or twice I would meet a future mount adorner as they admired the mounts on show and remarked how they knew the woman in question. I was 24 when the conspiracy was founded, and I was 46 when it ended. 22 years of personally killing and eating at least 4,500 women, and that's not counting how much blood is on my hands because of the great purges at the foundation of the conspiracy, and nor is it including the people who died when I ended the conspiracy. There is a lot of blood on my hands, and I will have to live with it until the day I die. The point though is that I am not a hero, and I know I'm not. I am a monster. You want to see heroes? Look no further than Jeff Pottershark and Lucy Dance, the true destroyers of the conspiracy. I just cleared up my own mess.